Daniel chapter 5. As regards King Belshazzar, he held a great feast for 1,000 of his nobles, and he was drinking wine in front of them. While under the influence of the wine, Belshazzar gave an order to bring in the vessels of gold and silver that his father Nebuchadnezzar had taken from the temple in Jerusalem, so that the king and his nobles, his concubines, and his secondary wives could drink from them. Then they brought in the gold vessels that they had taken from the temple of the house of God in Jerusalem, and the king and his nobles, his concubines, and his secondary wives drank from them. They drank wine, and they praised the gods of gold and silver, of copper, iron, wood, and stone. At that very moment the fingers of a man's hand appeared and began writing on the plaster of the wall of the king's palace opposite the lampstand, and the king could see the back of the hand as it was writing. Then the king turned pale, and his thoughts terrified him, and his hips shook, and his knees began to knock together. The king called out loudly to summon the conjurers, the Chaldeans, and the astrologers. The king said to the wise men of Babylon, "Any man who reads this writing and tells me its interpretation will be clothed in purple. A gold necklace will be placed around his neck. He will rule as a third in the kingdom." Then all the wise men of the king came in, but they were not able to read the writing or make known the interpretation to the king. So King Belshazzar was very frightened, and his face turned pale, and his nobles were perplexed. Because of the words of the king and his nobles, the queen entered the banqueting hall. The queen said, "O king, may you live on forever. Do not let your thoughts terrify you, nor let your face turn pale. There is a man in your kingdom who has a spirit of holy gods. In the days of your father, enlightenment and insight and wisdom like the wisdom of the gods were found in him. King Nebuchadnezzar, your father, appointed him as the chief of the magic-practicing priests, conjurers, Chaldeans, and astrologers. Your father did this, O king. For Daniel, whom the king named Belteshazzar, had an extraordinary gift and knowledge and insight to interpret dreams, to explain riddles, and to solve knotty problems. Now let Daniel be summoned, and he will tell you the interpretation." So Daniel was brought in before the king. The king asked Daniel, "Are you Daniel, the exiles of Judah, whom my father the king brought out of Judah? I have heard concerning you that the spirit of gods is in you, and that enlightenment and insight and extraordinary wisdom have been found in you. Now the wise men and the conjurers were brought in before me to read this writing, and to make its interpretation known to me. But they are not able to tell the interpretation of the message. But I have heard concerning you that you are able to provide interpretations, and to solve knotty problems. Now if you are able to read the writing, and make its interpretation known to me, you will be clothed with purple, and a gold necklace will be placed around your neck, and you will rule as a third of one in the kingdom." Daniel then replied to the king, "You may keep your gifts, your presents to others. However, I will read the writing to the king and make known its interpretation to him. As for you, O king, the Most High God granted to Nebuchadnezzar, your father, the kingdom and the greatness and the honor and the majesty. Because of all the greatness he gave him, all peoples, nations, and language groups trembled with fear before him. Whomever he wanted he killed or let live. Whomever he wanted he exalted or humiliated. But when his heart became haughty and his spirit became hardened, so that he acted presumptuously, he was brought down from the throne of his kingdom, and his dignity was taken away from him. He was driven away from mankind, and his heart was made like that of a beast. His dwelling was with wild donkeys. He was given vegetation to eat like the bulls, and his body became wet with the dew of the heavens, till he came to know that the Most High God is ruler in the kingdom of mankind, and that he sets up over whomever he wants. But you, his son Belshazzar, have not humbled your heart, although you knew all of this. Instead, you exalted yourself against the Lord of the heavens, and you had them bring you the vessels of his house. And then you, your nobles, your concubines, and your secondary wives drank wine from them and praised gods of silver, gold, of copper, iron, wood, and stone, gods that see nothing and hear nothing and know nothing. But you have not glorified the God in whose hands is your breath, and all your ways. So the hand was sent from him, and this writing was inscribed. And it is the writing that was inscribed, Mene, Mene, Tekel, and Parsin. This is the interpretation of these words. Mene, God has numbered the days of your kingdom and brought it to an end. Tekel, you have been weighed in the balances and found lacking. Peres, your kingdom has been divided and given to the Medes and Persians. Then Belshazzar gave the command, and they clothed Daniel with purple, and placed a gold necklace around his neck. And they heralded concerning him that he was to become the third ruler of the kingdom. That very night Belshazzar, the Chaldean king, was killed, and Darius the Mede received the kingdom. He was about 62 years old.